right, guys, I got to cut that intro short because we're going to talk none other today than BENDT Distilling. And they have a slogan that says straight is good, but BENDT is better. Let's find out. All right, guys, welcome back. So today we have Riley. He's head of sales for BENDT Distilling, and we're going to talk to him about all things bent and unbent. And we're going to get into some whiskey here, and we're also going to talk some backstory and some life. And you guys who have been listening for a minute already know where we go. It goes a little crazy sometimes. We get stuck talking about fermentations for an hour, whatever. It's fine. So without further ado, here's Riley. How's it going, brother?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to always, sit and join a fellow Texan and a fellow whiskey enthusiast. It's been fun connecting with so many different people that, share. I was just talking to somebody earlier that the bourbon community is just, there's so much of it, and it's really fun that, we get to have these fun conversations. And
Absolutely. So before we get started, I want to get something in the class because
absolutely
it's a Thursday. I don't normally drink during the week except when I'm doing podcasts. So you give me a good excuse. So we're going to get into the BENDT number 5. And this is an American blended whiskey. So tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll go backwards.
Yeah, so this blend was really created. It's coming up on its 5-year anniversary, actually. It was released September 1st, 2019. So the blend obviously has evolved over time, as the distillery has, but this blend was really created. Natasha and Ryan, our owners, they saw this gap in the, let's say, blended category. Blended, as a lot of us know, has been a bastardized term for a long time. Use of neutral grain spirits, junk whiskey, just nothing that screams, "Hey, this is quality,"
Right.
Or craft. So really large production stuff. So we wanted to create something that was approachable, affordable, and that realistic, easy shelf price, for people to have an all Texas distilled whiskey, and, something that taking the blend and not maybe necessarily meaning we're putting junk juice into it. So this is going to be a blend of 5 different whiskeys, which I still haven't found another whiskey that uses 5 completely separate whiskeys to blend together, besides like Fistful of Bourbon, which is all bourbons. So bourbon, rye, wheat, malt, and light whiskey. So the light whiskey is going to be, obviously, in lieu of using neutral grain spirit, we're using light whiskey. It's going to be I've had it, single barrels. It's delicious. We will have an unbent light whiskey at some point.
Okay, cool.
But we wanted to use an actual spirit. So the light whiskey is going to be the exact same mash bill as our bourbon. We spend about 75% of the year doing bourbon mash. It's just going to be distilled to 175, 180 proof. And then obviously goes into our ex-bourbon barrels. So we do get at least 2 or 3 usages out of almost every one of our barrels, which is cool. We're not wasting anything. So I might as well just I'll take a sip of this so I can.
Go ahead. And I'll tell the crew what we're getting into. I mean, the color's really light, obviously, because it has some light whiskey in it. And obviously, when you're blending whiskeys together, you got to make sure. We've learned this multiple times. You got to make sure the blend just stays where it needs to be and it doesn't collapse on you. And I feel like this is done really well. And you put it at at a low enough proof to where you could drink it pretty easy, and it's really light and it's almost refreshing when you drink it, which is that's why I wanted to start with this and then go into some of the heavier stuff. But I mean, it's go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. Light whiskey or bright, and we're obviously at a really hot point of time right now in Texas. My drink of choice with this usually is BENT and ginger ale or a BENT lemonade. This is the whiskey that we are like, I don't care how you drink it. We call it the non-pretentious whiskey. Like if you want to drink it neat, great. If you want to drink it in a foofed up cocktail, great. If you want to mix it with Coke, totally fine.
Right.
This was created basically to kind of rival that Jameson Crown stylistic whiskey. And I always like to point the fun fact about why TX was created years and years ago. Because at one point we were selling more Crown in the state of Texas than the whole entire country of Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
So TX created that flavor profile. Obviously, their blend is what drives most of their sales. They're using what we just talked about, neutral grain spirit in theirs. So I wouldn't say we're near flavor profile like them. I always call them kind of dessert sweetness, and we're pre-dinner sweetness. Your fruit salad, your mangoes, your pear, your apple. So, for a craft whiskey that is no more than $30 on the shelf, I mean, it's really enjoyable to me. I mean, if you want something, obviously we're at a spot where 120, 130, 140 proof stuff is really, really hot. But you can't drink that all day, every day. You need your esophagus needs a break. Your liver needs a break. So shock it with some normal 83 proof whiskey.
Absolutely. And the good thing is with it is since you're using light whiskey, which it has a lighter flavor than normal whiskey, but it's not that neutral grain spirit taste of just ethanol. So you are getting full whiskey taste out of the whole thing. And to me, I mean, of course, you guys kind of made it to drink however you want, but even just sipping on it neat, it really has a nice profile, and it has enough there to where you're not like getting lost in it. But I could see how you could be outside grilling and just drinking this at the same time. I would like to put it on a big rock, and I might do that here this weekend. Put it on a big rock and sit with it for a little bit and see how it opens up, because it's super vanilla, but it's also bright and citrusy and stuff like that. So it has a lot of those really nice summery notes, which is great.
Well, and I'm a big, obviously being in sales, I'm big, out in cocktail bars, out in restaurants, doing all kinds of stuff. I say in the last 4.5 years, I've probably tried just about any cocktail you could think of with this whiskey. But I mean, I go towards whiskey sours and smashes and stuff like that leans towards that citrus base, really. But it just works really well with the whiskey. And when this was released, it was 9 to 18-month-old juice. Now we're pushing, as you can see on the back of the label, it says all the whiskeys 2 years or older. So also, 2 years or more old.
2 years,
We put that on there. These are all going to be reaching closer to 3 years, but as you know, with labeling, we don't want to put 3 years and then, have to redo it in a couple of years if we have to pull younger juice. So, but we do like to say this is 3-year-old juice that, it's definitely progressed a long way since I started.
Right. And so your home base is located about a little bit north and west of Dallas. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're in Louisville, which we're 15 minutes from DFW Airport, about 30 minutes north of Dallas, about 30 minutes northeast of Fort Worth. So pretty centrally located, right off 35 in between Dallas and Denton. Awesome. Yeah, we're
pretty easy to get to.
Yeah. I mean, 35. I mean, when I'm in Austin, I just tell people to drive 35 for 3 hours and then hang a right on Main Street, and you run into us. We're actually in an old abandoned Piggly Wiggly grocery store. So our distillery was we took over that building in 2015, completely gutted it, and it's now fully operational. About 60% of it is going to be production and rick house, and then the other 40% is going to be retail shop, cocktail lounge, bar. I mean, it's a really cool spot. Next time you're up in North Texas, we will for sure meet up there. Absolutely.
We're actually going to Dallas later in the fall for a wedding, so you might see me over there.
you know where to find me.
Absolutely. So, so we already talked about the warehouse space. Kind of give us a little backstory on the brand and kind of what I like to tell people, the why do this? Why make whiskey, basically?
Yeah, so Ryan and Natasha, DeHart, are owners, founders. They they don't come from a distilling background. They don't come from like a family. This is not a family thing. They're all corporate America people. They were living in Germany for a long time, and fell in love with the craft beer culture there back in the early 2000s. And they relocated back to the States over in Dallas, and pretty soon they found themselves making, well, they were homebrewing. They changed one of their closets into a tap system. It had, I don't know, 10, 12 kegs on it. And so they found this love for beer and making beer. And then Ryan, ex-Marine, one of his buddies, a guy named Quentin Witherspoon. We were Witherspoon Distillery prior to 2019, transitioned into BENDT. We're totally fine to talk about all that stuff too.
Right.
But Quentin was actually distilling rum in his garage, and Ryan and Natasha homebrewing. So collectively just decided to get together, and of course we started with rum. 12 years ago, we are having our 12th anniversary on Saturday at the distillery. So yeah, so we've only been officially BENDT for 5 years, but we've been active DSP for 12 years. So the why really was, they found a love for craft and for craft beer, and they were tired of working for somebody else, and they just decided, hey, let's do it legally, because they were obviously, you can't home distill yet. We're working on a law to home distill.
Hey, yeah, you saw that too, huh?
Yes, yeah, very small capacities, but home distilling is illegal. So really took that passion, started making rum. Then obviously that leads into whiskey production. And Natasha she's a super taster, which I'm sure you've heard. That's an actual term. They're born with more taste buds on their tongue than normal human beings. And so she wanted to create something that was flavorful, and you could combine all these flavors. And really, again, the why was that there's not any good blended whiskey out there, or they're starting to get some, and it's starting to not become near as a bastardized term as it was. And the argument I have with everybody is, unless it's a true single barrel, everything is blended. It just depends. We just went crazy and chose 5 whiskeys to blend together, as opposed to 10 barrels of bourbon, or 20 barrels of bourbon. So fast forward to now, we've obviously started increasing production. When I started 4.5 years ago, we were doing 6 to 10 barrels a week, and now we're doing 40 to 60 barrels a week, depending on it. So we really are trying to put out, I think we've found our sweet spot with, our aging. We've found our mash bills. I think as you go in through the rest of the whiskeys, that they're all unique, but they're all approachable, and they're all really good whiskeys. And another thing that they were really big on was using local ingredients. So all of our grains were 100% grain to glass. All of I would say 95% of our grains come from Denton County or Texas. The only thing that we can't generally get a good run on is going to be malted barley. So that might come from the Panhandle or from Colorado, but that's a problem that every distiller sees, is finding the right barley that makes sense. So we are full circle, grain to glass. We call it farm to table too, because we sell our spent grain to a farm, or we used to sell it. Now they gift us a butchered cow every year for Christmas. So we get
there you go.
Betsy the whiskey fed cow for Christmas every year.
She's really
delicious. She's delicious.
Sure. I'm sure.
And no, I cannot taste the whiskey and the meat, but it would be kind of fun.
You're not. You might put some whiskey on the steak when you're making it, but other than that, yeah. No,
Sure.
That's super cool that you guys are doing that, and you're trying to stay as local as you can and do it as the best way you know how. So that BENDT number 5 was great, but I know I'm moving a little fast. I'm sorry, but no, we're going to get into this one. So now I want to switch over to the malt, because the viewers at home are going to know I'm a big malt guy. I love American single malt. I love Scotch and stuff like that. Tell us a little. Now, all of these are bottled in bond. So that's really cool as well. So we, I'm going to do a little bit larger pour on this one because I know I haven't tried it, but I know I'm going to like it. I'll show everybody at home.
Yeah. So
it's a very thick. Go ahead.
This one, super unique. So also my favorite whiskey. Anybody that may have ever heard me talk on a podcast or selling, this is my favorite whiskey we make. Not a true American single malt. We will have an American single malt out underneath the unbent line in a couple of years, but this is going to be a 60 malted barley, 40% red winter wheat mash bill on this one. So again, kind of along the theme of nobody else is doing it. Maybe we're kind of weird, or maybe we're trailblazers. But I don't know what it is about this whiskey or the grain bill that makes it taste the way it does. But this I call like the gateway from bourbon to Scotch or Scotch to bourbon, or it's just one of those whiskeys that you can enjoy, or I personally enjoy probably too many times a week. But yeah, this was the second one we came out with. And, you still have people, you have your big single malt fans, your malt fans, but people are still hesitant on it, right? They're still hesitant because they think it's going to be smoky or scotchy or this or that. And this, to me, doesn't have any of that, or not huge Scotch flavor profile, but.
No, you definitely, obviously you get the malt up front. It's very prominent. It's, which is kind of funny. I always tend to think that malt is more like shredded wheat, but it's not wheat. Obviously it's malt, but that's what it kind of gives me, like the malto meal type taste in my mouth. But then you have the wheat as a backbone for it as well. So now it's getting like to almost Whopper consistency with a little bit of chocolate and stuff like that on it. It's really interesting. That's just the first little sip. So it's really interesting. And the fact that you're not using any corn in it, it's really nice because, I love a good, wheated bourbon and stuff like that. But this to me is just a little bit different, which I love different. Obviously, look at me. I'm a little different. So
hey, we all are in our own right?
Absolutely.
This one, and I'm not going to call them arguments, but have many conversations about this whiskey because a lot of people think it's secondary cask, maybe a port finisher, a sherry finisher. I even say like cognac-y Calvados type flavor profile. That you get these like white grapes or cranberries or something, white wine. So, and I don't know what to attest that to because I think it just has to be the mash bill and the way the grains play together. But this one, as you can see behind me, most of these back behind me are all cask straight from the barrel bottles, ranging all the way to like 143 proof, 144.
Oh, some hazmat stuff back there. Awesome.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the straight from the barrel thing too. But yeah, we released this whiskey about 2 years ago. Right at 6 years old on these. Almost all of the unbents are going to be 6 years old. Again, all bottled on. Our warehouse, our distillery on site only has about 400 to 500 rick spots in there. And so we do have an offsite storage about a mile away that's a bonded warehouse as well. We have about 3,000 or 4,000 barrels over there. Not temperature controlled, we let the elements do its thing. So as we're in Texas, we should let the elements do its thing.
Absolutely. Because what happens, as you well know, we get extreme swings. Like we had a thunderstorm come in today and it was 68 degrees in the morning. And then this afternoon, it's up to 90 already. So you're like, what is going on? And then it gets, 80% humidity. And, it's like, good Lord. We've been blessed this summer, though. It's not super hot yet. We haven't had 30 days of over 100. So, we're being blessed. But that's the thing. Like people that use the temperature controlled warehouses, I get it. I get why they're doing it because they want flavor consistency. They don't want like this barrel up here, this barrel down there. I get that. But at the same time, like that's kind of what it's about, it's showing the true force of the barrel mixed with the whiskey. I mean, that to me says a lot about, and of course, think about it. You guys, like you said, this is it's a blend of other barrels. It's not just a single barrel, so you can kind of blend some of those high notes out and stuff like that. So, okay, we talked a little bit about production. I want to go back to that. If you can divulge this information,
Sure.
like your still size, your capacity about, a barrel a day, 2 barrels a day, depending. Where are you at?
Yeah, so we have, and there's pictures on our site. So we have what we call the sub still. I joke about it. I call it the, oh shit, what is that still? Because I get that reaction more times than not. People walk in and they're like, what the hell is that? But we do have a custom built still out of Canada. It was made exclusively for us. It's a 1 of 1. It's 2,114 gallons, I think is the number.
Okay.
So on a good day, it will push out between 5 and 7 barrels a run, which a run is correct me if I think they might kill me, but 6 or 7 hours for a run.
Okay.
We're running pretty much 20 hours a day, 7 days a week right now. We have morning shifts, evening shifts. We have five or six full-time people on distillation. So, so we have the most recent expansion we just did was in the fall. Our previous capacity was we have three 2,000 gallon fermenters. That's what we've been using for the longest time. And then we just installed 2 4,000 gallon fermenters. So we went from 6 to 14, so 2 1/3 times what we were doing before, which we think that current setup can run us about, it's somewhere in the range of about 100,000 cases of whiskey a year, 50,000 12 packs, 900 cases. So that's a pretty good amount of whiskey.
Yes.
50, 60 barrels a week, 2,500 to 3,000 barrels a year. I think we've done somewhere around 550 to 600 this year. So we're putting down a lot of whiskey in preparation for the future. But yeah, so we have this massive still. It truly looks like a submarine. It's about 45 feet long. It's huge. Wow. It's massive.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, really big. We thought it was the largest still in Texas. I think Balcones has some really big ones.
They do.
But we went and saw Giant with Julian from Giant, and they have a 2-story, 4,000 gallon fermenter. So we were beat there, and they just put in 6 40,000 gallon fermenters. So they have, they put them in and then built the building around it. That's how big they are. So we're not trying to be that big. We're only as big as we can right now. We're kind of limited to the space we have because we're in a building. If we want to do something else, it's going to be at a different location. So that's probably in the plans for the next 5 to 10 years, but we're dabbling on what the next 10 years looks like. So
that's crazy because like thinking about, like everybody thinks about the future and what the whiskey industry's going to do. I've talked to people that says, we're going to have a little dip in the whiskey industry and stuff like that because of barrels and stuff like that. But I don't know if I see it. Like maybe it'll just give people a chance to age their whiskey a little longer. Sure. Even if the sales drop a little bit, you're still able, money lending, obviously, but you're still able to put whiskey in barrel. And if you're able to continue to do that, I mean, everybody was trying to do it during the pandemic, right? Everybody was trying to lay whiskey down as they were making sanitizer as well. So, it's one of those things like, hey, if we can get some whiskey in barrel and at least sit on it for a little while, then it's crazy. I can't even think about what the next couple of years is going to be like because it's up in the air, obviously, but at the same time, there's so many innovations like what you guys are doing and a lot of the other people I talk to. The innovation is just going crazy right now, and people are trying all these new things with new mash bills and it's really interesting. It's really fun, and it's turning whiskey on its head at the same time, which I guess we could talk about that a little bit. You guys you have your straight bourbon whiskey, right? Which is a normal bourbon mash bill. But, and I didn't pick that one for today because I'm like, totally I love straight, don't get me wrong. I love a straight bourbon, but a straight malt whiskey. Let's try that first. And the next one we're going to get into, I still have some of this one, so we're going to wait. But the next one is even a little bit cooler because people don't play with wheat a lot. There's very few. Our buddies over at Lone Elm use wheat all the time, but they had a little issue. They closed down for a little bit. I think they're back open. I don't know. It's very strange. So how do I say this? Why pick the mash bills that you did, or is it just you're trying to find every grain and see what its profile brings you? Is that kind of where you're at?
I don't know the thinking behind why we created all these whiskeys in the first place, but I do know we've talked about our rye a lot recently because it's our latest release. But Jacob, our lead distiller, he said that mash bill was the 17th mash bill they had played with. I think at one point, we have all kinds of R&D projects, or maybe 1 barrel for 5 barrels of stuff that we just tried, or this or that. We have, I think at one point there was like 27 or 30 different mash bills in rotation. We've knocked that down to a very consistent, like 5 to 7, I think, very much more manageable. The ones that we're going to continue to make and continue to have.
Right.
So I don't really know the specific reason behind these. I mean, we've had a single malt in the past. We will have a single malt in the future. I think we had probably a plethora of wheat. That's probably why I think wheat grows really well here. And so hence the straight wheat that we're going to try, hence the malt having some wheat in it as well.
Right.
That these, again, just kind of lean towards approachability, that, we're putting stuff in there. I mean, wheat whiskey, I say it all the time, that you may not even know you like wheat whiskey, but you probably like wheat whiskey. Like someone joked with me, I think it was Big Chief, the whiskey trip guy.
Yeah.
He goes, we're talking on his podcast, and he's like, so if you're not a wheat fan, somebody offers you a taste of Pappy Van Winkle, you're going to tell them no? And then he's like, well, if you tell them no, or you tell them yes, then you're a wheat fan. Like, so, everybody likes wheat in some capacity. Yes. It's just one of those that, we're kind of highlighting it rather than putting it behind a wheated bourbon. In fact, the rye, which we can talk about just a little bit.
Go ahead.
We use a grain in there called triticale, which you're probably familiar with. I had Samuel Mavericks. I've had a few others that are across the country. People have sent me, but we're even using that kind of grain. 27% of our rye mash bill is triticale. We will have a straight triticale under the unbent line, 99% triticale, 1% malted barley. It's probably the 7th of the unbent line that we'll release because it's going to take some market education, but I think we've got a really good grain supplier. And funny enough, we were talking about this yesterday with the distiller, and our grain guys we've had a good relationship with for many years.
Right.
And just bring us random things to try, and Jacob will try them, and if he likes them, I found this out yesterday, so kind of new information for me, but they will make essentially a tea out of these grains, and that's how they can taste it. They think that the grain is going to make a good enough whiskey. If they think it's going to make a good enough whiskey, then they run a really small batch. We have a very small, I don't even know if it's 20 or 30 gallons still, that probably gets a couple test runs of whatever we're going to do. So I think it was a lot of trial and error, and probably more error than not.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And then you get into like, okay, we tried this specific wheat. Now let's try a different wheat. And we tried this specific rye. Now let's go to a Bruzy, or let's go to, I know Dad's Hat was doing, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the rye now. But it's a special type of rye that they made just for them, and, you got Iron Root doing heirloom corn and all of those things. Well, and Balcones as well. But, like there's so many avenues you can go down to get different profile. And then you get into, and we can talk about that. I'm fixing to open this wheat up, but you can get into finishing as well. That there's so many finishing barrels you can go in. I know Still Austin just released a rye finished in Madeira cast.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff you can do, so it's crazy. So my question on this one, this is the unbent straight wheat whiskey. This is the only one that has a cork.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you got a cork one. Cool.
I do.
So as you know, we're obviously in Texas. It's really, really hot.
Yes.
I came from a wine background, funny enough, that from about June, I think it's about 85, 87 degrees. After we get above that, corks will start to pop out of bottles. So we're seeing a ton of corks dry out, ton of cork lossage, ton of, corks breaking, and just corks popping out. And so this is probably close to a year ago now that we decided to make the move to pure cork or pure screw tops on everything. Okay. They're not actually cheaper. Some people think the first run of screw caps we did were, again, one of those errors, not that we didn't do well, but the new ones that we have, which is probably on the bourbon bottle that you have. That's the new one that we're going to go with. But just one of those things and I was a little hesitant, and Natasha and I had this conversation because a lot of people just want to pull that cork out and have that sound. It's just a nostalgic sound to do. And I was like, I don't know. I just don't think this makes sense. And so we started talking about it. I've talked with, out of 100 people, I think I've had 10 people that are like, yeah, it's a cork, it's a screw top. But I think more people than not are been like, thank you for doing a screw top. You don't have to worry about your corks breaking. My dad's a Scotch collector, or was a Scotch collector. He's got a whole drawer full of synthetic corks because of all the ones that have dried out over time. Yep. So these are all, they're single turns or very, very quick turns. They're not like you need to spoil them around. We have a bar at the distillery, a full bar. So obviously these bottles were made for dual purposes, for the bar and for ease of customer out in the market. So that should be the last of the cork bottles that you received. We do have a couple that have snuck behind the rest of them in the retail shop, and I'm like, hey, let's get the cork ones gone.
Get those out of here.
Get those out of here. So
that's funny because I feel like people are going more towards that, because I got a bottle from it was Oak and Eden, right? Those people, and it was a special bottle. They made it for me, whatever, blah blah blah. And they had a cork with a little tape over the top of it. And of course it leaked because, they were shipping it and doing all the things. And I'm like, did you not think to put some cellophane or, like maybe wax it a little bit or something? Anyway, but yeah, it's one of those things. And even the synthetic corks now, I have a couple of bottles. You pull the cork and the top of the cork is off and the rest of it's stuck in there. So I get it. There is people that want that. Like you said, they want that cork pop. But if the juice inside doesn't change, and it doesn't because it doesn't let any more air than a cork does, if the juice inside doesn't change, I don't care.
Yeah, I think there's more positives than negatives to it.
Absolutely.
The negatives are going to be from the people that truly just want that feeling. But there's I always, if anybody comes at me and they're like, oh, it's a screw top, I'm like, when was the last time you bought a bottle of Weller 12 or anything like that? Like, Weller 12 is a screw top. Yeah, Yamazawa, everything in Japan is a screw top.
Yes, it is.
It's a law.
Yeah.
Wine background too. Everything in New Zealand has to be in a screw top. They don't allow cork on the island, I don't think. So everything they do is in screw top. So again, I think a lot more benefits than setbacks to it. That we don't have to worry about it. The quality control, they're gonna be fine. That someone brought up a little plastic spacer one time, and I don't think we have the plastic spacer anymore. So it did take a couple iterations, but we got to figure it out. And so screw caps moving forward on everything.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those things that, like, unfortunately and fortunately both, there's people out there that are going to call you on it, and they're going to say, hey, this little piece of plastic in here doesn't need to be in here. It's going to deteriorate. And so you're like, all right, fine, we'll get rid of that too. It's like, next thing you know, it's just going to have a damn pour spout on it, and you're just like, just deal with it. Like, I don't know.
you can't make everybody happy. I mean,
absolutely not.
But I think the lion's share of the community that I've talked with, I've got a lot more thank yous than I've gotten screw yous about that.
Absolutely. It doesn't turn me off at all. It's just one of those things. It's a talking point for sure, because there is purists out there that are like that. But yeah, like with Yamazaki and Hakushu, they're all screw tops, and you're like, this is some expensive whiskey here that it's pretty crazy.
At least you don't have to worry about cork. Weirdly enough, people don't realize that you can get a corked bottle of whiskey. It's an actual thing that can happen. It's not made up. So, and correct me if I'm wrong. You've had Ben Holiday, I'm sure, recently. Are they all screw caps too?
I actually just had them on.
Oh, did you?
This one will be out. Like the bottle's literally right here. This one will be out after that one. But yeah, no, I just had them on.
I saw you had the guys from Old Raleigh on too. Which my name being Raleigh, I'm not named after the city, but I haven't gotten myself to order a $130 bottle and have it shipped to me. So I'm just gonna go one day and go to North Carolina and go get it.
Absolutely. No, Brandon, he's an amazing person. I'm so glad that he came on and we got to talk. They're doing really cool stuff with blending and stuff like that. They are NDP, but at the same time, the juice that's in the bottle is pretty amazing. But we're not here to talk about them.
I'm gonna. Is that non-distributed product?
Non-distiller producer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, non-distiller producer. They're getting anything from Tennessee, Kentucky, a little bit of MGP, not a whole lot, some Texas stuff, and they're just kind of blending, and then they're doing barrel finishing and stuff like that. It's really cool. So
the wheat was the first one we actually released. We actually released this one first. It was I want to say right at about, I think it was February of 2022. So just over 2 years ago. And again, we kind of go back to everybody likes wheat whiskey, even if they don't think they do. This one's won more medals than the other ones. Double golds in San Francisco and in New York. My claim to fame was last year on Ultimate Spirits Challenge. We were ahead of Blanton's on the top 100 list. And I was like, we beat Blanton's at one thing, and that's what we did well. Top 100 spirits, not top 100 whiskeys, top 100 overall spirits they tasted, which was super cool. I think we were 54 on that list. But this one, we'll go with the theme. This is another unique mash bill, 60 wheat, 30 corn, 10% malted barley. So, very, very unique flavor profile. I mean, I've been talking about this one for the longest time, so I have more tasting notes and talking notes than I have for some of the others. But the first time I tried this on with doing something like this was with Nico Martini.
Excellent guy.
Familiar? We're sitting there, and I was like, okay, so my grandmother makes monkey bread, plucking cake for Christmas every year. And that's my nostalgic reaction when I taste this. It has that doughy, yeasty, bready, cinnamon bomb. For me, I think it's, weirdly enough, I think it's the one that has the most flavor of all of our whiskeys. But it's one of those that it's a people pleaser. Once we get into some cooler months, this makes a kick-ass old fashioned because it has those Thanksgiving allspice flavors.
It really does. It really does.
This with some maple syrup as in your old fashioned would just kick ass, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's really nice on the nose. Like, it doesn't present super harsh. There's not, like, to me, it has a lot of like molassesy, almost triticale notes. And then the malt, the wheat comes through as like really soft and light. Where I know on some other wheated bourbons, it almost makes it a little spicier, which this isn't spicier. It's really soft and delicate, but yet when you take a drink of it, the corn sweetness comes through, and then it just kind of turns into like shredded wheat or something like that. It's really, really intriguing.
Yeah, it's really, really fun to, now that I have 5 whiskeys out and being able to try all these by themselves, or all these side by side with people.
Right.
It's, it's one of those like rolling dice. I never know which whiskey somebody's going to pick as their favorite. And weirdly enough, you picked the 2 that I think most people kind of go to, which is kind of fun. That it's like the ones that you don't think people are going to pick, they actually end up picking. Right. But yeah, I think again, this one's one of those that you're just like, wow, that's got a lot of flavor to it.
It does. It really does.
But again,
even go ahead. Sorry.
It's like, again, same still, same wheat that we're using in the other stuff. It just truly goes to show that like just purely a recipe can change flavor profile that much.
Right. I guess one of my other questions would be, are you using full-size barrels?
Yeah. Standard 53 gallon. We get them from Independent Stave. Actually, we just switched to Independent Stave. So we get 200. They can fit 288 barrels on a long truck. Just so you know, if anybody ever asks you how many barrels can fit in a truck, it's 288. And so 3 char. They don't do half chars. We used to do 3.5 char. 3 char and everything. But yeah, standard 53 gallon barrels. We were using, I forget, Cumberland. Cumberland's the one that Sazerac purchased in 2020, their own cooperage. So we were using Sazerac's cooperage. Some of them have been side bungs. We're now to top bungs, or side. We're back to top bungs. We palletize everything storage wise. We don't see that it makes any real difference. Depends on who you talk to.
Yes, you're right.
I'm good friends with Emiliano down at Still Austin, and he swears by this or that or the other thing. So, it really just kind of depends on what you think. My palate's not good enough to figure out. But the cool thing is that when we were switching from Cumberland to Independent Stave, we were running this wheat. So we actually had probably 10 barrels of the old barrels, and then enough for about 20 of the new barrels. So we're going to get to see 6, 12, 18 months down the line if that barrel truly makes a difference flavor-wise. Again, it's going to be a while, but Independent Stave, they're very well recognized.
Yes, they are.
They come from the exact same mountain. It just depends on which side of the mountain you're getting your
right. Exactly. No, you're totally right. And do y'all play with different types of oak? Like, I know they're really big. Independent especially is really big about getting Missouri oak and stuff like that. Have you branched out to get any like Gariana or any other oak profiles?
Not that I'm aware of. We're pretty standard right now. We do have some R&D project. As you these bottles down. Where's my hand? These bottles down here.
Okay.
So those that label is our Old Town Spirits label, which is a distillery only label. It generally sees clear spirits or brandies or rums or this or that. So we do have some projects where we'll do a Tempranillo cask, or we'll do a port cask or a sherry, all kinds of stuff. But as far as like dedicated different kinds of wood, we're pretty standard. We do have some R&D projects. I tried a 3-year bourbon that's been sitting in a Tempranillo barrel for the last 2.5 years, and it is the second best whiskey I've tried out of the distillery out of a barrel. We drilled into it, tasted it one day, and it was absolutely singing. Nothing I think we're going to try to hang our hat on.
Right.
I get the question all the time that, are you going to finish? Are you going to do Mizunara finishes? Are you going to do Amberana finishes or rosé casks or whatever? And my thing to that is, if you're an MGP distillery or you're buying MGP and you need a way to differentiate 95.5 MGP mash, that's the direction you go, because you have to differentiate. For us, we want the flavor we want to really highlight our flavors. And I think, not that we're opposed to it, I think we'll probably at some point, as you can see on the front of the bottle, it says aged in oak. So it might at some point say aged in sherry or aged in port. We left it open to potential. But yeah, for now, we're just trying to crank out as much juice and put it in those American white oak barrels as possible, and see where that leads us.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, if you're doing something right, keep doing it right. Like don't try and change the thing. That's something y'all can do 20 years from now. Whenever it's gone a little stale, you can be like, hey, we need something new. I'm getting sick and tired of running this mash bill. We've done it for 20 years. So I got a kind of a fun question for you personally. What's your guilty pleasure drink that's not whiskey?
Oh, I'm just like, I like a good margarita. Honestly, I'm a margarita guy. Not to boast our distillery specifically, but we do make a blackberry ghost pepper margarita at the distillery with our agave distillate, and it is. Yeah, the bartenders know I'm either going to order our black cherry malt old fashioned or the blackberry ghost pepper margarita. Those are the two cocktails I order. Typically, if I'm going to have something, or weirdly enough, wine background, I'm a big wine guy. I like wine, white wine, rosé. I'll drink red wine when it's 100 degrees outside. I don't care. My dad's been in the wine and spirits business for 40 some odd years, and we're just a big wine family. That's kind of how that's kind of how I got into the industry. And so I truly just enjoy a glass, like a nice, crisp glass of white wine at times.
I get it.
It beats the heat.
Absolutely. No, that's great. I mean, because it's different for each person. I get some people that say, oh, I'm whiskey only. Well, sometimes you got to branch out. You can't tell me you don't want to get a beer every once in a while or something like that. These hardcore guys out here trying to, they're killing themselves with cast strength bourbon.
I drink crappy beer. My beer of choice is like a Lone Star or a PBR. There
you go, brother.
My local spot, I'm like, I just want a PBR and a shot of whiskey. So there's whiskey involved, but there's days where I just want a beer. You don't need to drink hot whiskey every day. I mean, these are all 100 proof. So unless I'm drinking BENDT 5 at 83 proof, I'm going to be drinking bottled and bond, and you only can have so many of them.
Absolutely.
And I'm obviously out in the market doing a lot of stuff. So, you gotta break it up every once in a while. Scare your liver a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So do you go and do the events and the tastings and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, so we're a fairly small team. We have somewhere around 30 or 40 employees total at the distillery.
Okay.
Obviously, a lot of it is for the bar. We have this weekend on Saturday night, our 12-year anniversary, we'll have somewhere between 200 and 300 people in the bar. It's big. We have a massive patio. So we have probably 15 or 20 people just doing bar employees. But so anytime that there's a whiskey event or there's a liquor store tasting, I don't do all the liquor store tastings. Couldn't get to all the specs, but any of the whiskey riots or the whiskeys of the world or any of those kind of events, I generally man those. Jacob, our lead distiller, is coming out with us. He's been with us for coming up on 9 years now. So he's made everything that we were putting out in the market, which is super cool. He's got dreadlocks. He looks like he makes whiskey. I'm trying to convince him to up his Instagram game because he doesn't. He just now has one. His name is Dreaded Distiller, like the dreadlocks. So trying to get him to be a little bit more active, but yeah, the sales team is me, myself, and I have one key account manager, and then Natasha, my boss, does what she can, but obviously she's got a whole company to run. So
right.
The lion's share comes down to me, and we're only in Texas right now, and really by design, we took the approach about 3 years ago, the own your backyard approach. And I think that we had a Texas Whiskey Association call on Wednesday, and it's like, for me, and this is just maybe me speaking freely, but if I can't get my Texans to drink my Texas whiskey, why am I going to try to go to Georgia or or to Ohio or to California, Colorado to get the people to drink my whiskey. So we're really trying to do a really good job of owning our backyard. We have everything available online to start shipping across the country, which is a blessing from COVID.
Yes.
I'll share a code with you. That way you can send it out to your Patreon.
Please. Yeah, please do.
Because I know a lot of people that listen, they're trying. It's not a quick process. That's the thing. I say Amazon screwed everybody that's doing any sort of shipping because these things may take 5, 10, 15 days to get to you. But luckily, most everybody's been able to partner with a fulfillment center out of Austin that's handling all of our online ordering, fulfillment. So lead times have gone drastically down, and people can get the stuff that, I think we've shipped to 34 states, 36 states, something like that. So it's just cool that we've been able to get that reach, but not necessarily, on shelves.
I totally understand, because it's hard, because you're trying to lay down good whiskey, but then at the same time you're like, oh, we need a marketing team. Well, that costs more money, so we have to cut back on whiskey production just so we can have a marketing team to get out there and go to California and talk to these guys about drinking some Texas whiskey. And it's like, so like you say, own your backyard, and then next thing you know, like, people are going to ask for it. And also doing stuff, not that I'm the biggest guy in town, but like doing podcasts and promoting the brand as much as you can with the people you can is going to help. And, obviously you've seen that if you followed me for a minute. The people that come on here, I support them 100% long after the podcast is over. These people are family. They are a part of the family now, and I'm going to support them. Everybody from Moose at Andalusia to you guys that just came on today. So that's where it started, and we're blowing and going, but it's all because of you guys pushing the product and getting it out there to market. And if I can help in any way, I would be more than happy to do that. So one of the questions I have is based upon the distillery, but it can also be used in your practice as well. What are some of the biggest challenges that y'all have faced? Being changing in brand, obviously that was probably a big one, but obviously owning a distillery in itself is difficult. But what are some of those challenges that you've seen personally? Yeah,
so the first major one so I started, I will never forget the day because it was March 11th, 2020. So I started 6 days before we think the world kind of shut down from COVID. So we had launched BENDT number 5 in September 2019. Fast forward to me being hired 6 months later, and then the world shuts down. So there was a lot of, and everybody, and I like to bring this up because a lot of people just really thought that every brand was just thriving during COVID, because we were drinking a lot. I was drinking. We were all drinking. We were buying a lot. We were drinking a lot. But for us, I always say, nobody goes on to Total Wine or Specs or to any of these stores that you were shopping at or getting your booze at and craft shopping. There's a reason why Bulleit and Jameson and Woodford and Wild Turkey were the top brands, because they have, again, the biggest marketing budgets, the most well-recognized brands. And people were just going back to old reliable. Nobody was shopping for craft whiskey online. Now, I think we can thank COVID for the fact that we now have figured out DTC for the most part. And we have all these sites like Flaviar and Mash and Grape and Reserve Bar. And you can get whiskey from all kinds of spots.
Yes.
This won't come out for a few weeks. So Blind Barrels, I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yes.
So we are in the June box with the rye. They didn't exist until this is their 10th box. So they've been around about 2 years. Mm-hmm. So stuff like that came out of COVID. So that was our biggest hurdle. And I think, for me being the sales guy, I'm on the street. I came from a distributor background. So I was Pernod Ricard before selling the big brands, the Jamesons, the Absolutes, the Malibus of the world. And those brands are big for a reason, because they have a large marketing power. They have a large sales force. they can do things that the craft distilleries can't. So I think our biggest challenge is truly just our competition. There's so many brands out there. An alarming number that I did was 2 or 3 months ago. I went and I was like, I'm just going to go to Specs down the street from me, and I want to see how many whiskeys they have, different whiskey labels.
Yeah.
And not counting like Jack Daniel's half gallons and Jack Daniel's 750s, just single Jack Daniel's plus everything else, 496 different whiskey labels. And for us, we have 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 SKUs in a store like that. So even if we had 5, we're pushing less, or about just over 1% of that set. Texas, I think 10 years ago, we probably only had, 30, 40 distilleries, maybe not even whiskey distilleries. And so I think the crowded market has just started to really kind of bleed over into it. And I think the consumers got a lot more knowledgeable as to what they're drinking. Yeah. I think the fact you pointed out the bottled and bond earlier, the reason that we're putting bottled and bond on it, I mean, not that we shouldn't anyways, but it's bonded, of course. But people know that that's our own distillate. I mean, we're making it, not going to knock one side or the other. We call them makers and there's some fakers. Some people buy their juice, some people make their juice. There's a lot of people buying juice now. And so that's the other hurdle. We obviously spend the time, effort, dollars to lay those barrels down for 3 to 6 years, while we don't buy MGP to just put it into a bottle and then throw the sales force out behind it. So the hurdles kind of just as a craft distillery, but you have to understand that's where, when you sign up to do a craft distillery, and that's what you're signing up for. Most of them don't make money for at least 10 years. And we were just talking about this the other day that we're 12 years in. We'll just cut back at least 2 or 3 years from COVID. So we're almost to 10 years.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But when we were on that call with the Texas Whiskey Association, it was more or less like, how do we bring Texas together? And the big thing is that I'm not competing against Still Austin or against Balcones or against Andalusia, whatever it may be. We're all good friends. I think we all get along. We're competing against the bigger guys, the Woodfords, the Brown-Formans, the Sazeracs, the Turkeys of the world. Those are I'm not going to call them enemies, but those are the guys that take the lion's share of space. So that's probably our biggest challenge, is that craft is still craft, but I think we're looking at brands like Jack Daniel's that's been down 1 to 2%, which in the grand scheme of things is a lot of cases. Yep. But if a brand like that is moving in the wrong direction, that means people are maybe exploring different options. And I think people are really trying to go to craft.
They are.
And trying out new stuff. And I guess I'll point out I won't call them fakers, but Penelope being one, they absolutely flourished over the last 5 years. They just got bought back by MGP, Luxco. But people really saw that as a craft brand, and they just latched onto it. So I saw their latest Toasted Rye release is a limited release of 9,000 cases.
9,000 cases.
It's like,
9,000
cool.
cases. I'm
going to try to do 9,000 cases between all of my brands this year in Texas. You guys have fun with your limited release.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing. With most of the Texas people that I talk to, you're not trying to reach that Jack Daniel's number or, Heaven Hill or anything like that. You're just trying to make a little money for your family, make some good whiskey, and go from there. And you know what? If we get some awards, if we get some stuff, that's fine. Sure. But just try to put good whiskey in the glass to where people are like, hey, try this. Because I am a craft advocate, obviously, and I'm one of those ones that's like, hey, you like this, you might also like this. If you like a wheated, you might like this wheated.
Branch out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I had a guy the other day. I did a private little small men's club, bourbon club, 20 people the other day, and this guy was like, just Texas whiskey. I just can't do it. Just can't. Haven't found one I like. and we get to our bourbon, which I now sell is a very, I know we didn't taste it, but it is almost identical mash bill to Woodford and Old Forester. And I'm like, cool, we'll try it. I don't think you can speak on this, that these two whiskeys may be unique and different, but they're not Texas funk that people call the Texas funk, right? Their mainstream flavor profiles, the bourbon, very mainstream. I got peanut butter out of my whiskey the other day for the first time, and I normally only get peanut butter from big conglomerate Kentucky distillers.
Right.
So I think we're putting out good juice. It's just that we, as a state, trying to band together to make people like understand, like, hey, we're over here. You already don't really like us because we're really full of ourselves, but try our whiskey. I think we're making some pretty good whiskey. There's a reason why Lone Elm's won world's best wheat whiskey, and Iron Root has won world's best bourbon and world's best corn whiskey. You can only, I guess, disregard us for a little bit before you're like, all right, we should probably try this. It's probably pretty good. And I think there's a lot of brands out there that are not just even promoting Texas, but everything outside of Kentucky. Ben Holiday is a great example because it's Missouri. It's unique. I wouldn't have thought that Missouri would be putting out good whiskey, but sure as shit they are. I went to school in Kansas, and I'm like, why? There's more wheat fields in Kansas than I've ever seen. Why is there not a distillery in Kansas making badass wheat whiskey? But I'm sure Missouri's the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got one more question for you. Mm-hmm. What are some of your personal favorite whiskeys, either from your guys' distillery or others? So like you're like when you just want to drink, other than like let's say you're selling your whiskey all day long. What is it? Give me another one that's not your guys's that you go to where you're like, okay, this one I'm into.
So it's a kind of a two-part story. So the first distillery I ever went to was Old Forester. Okay. My previous background was with Constellation and Pernod Ricard, two very, very big, massive suppliers. And I always said that if I could work for Brown-Forman selling a brand that's synonymous with Coca-Cola, I would love to do that. I don't anymore. I love what I do, and I love like being with a small company. I think it's great.
Right.
So my go-to is generally it's going to be an Old Forester of some sort, or even Woodford. Woodford was my gateway whiskey, as a lot of people probably were using Woodford Double Oaked as a gateway whiskey. Yeah. If I'm having a cocktail, those are probably the two that I go to. I'm not a huge rye fan, so I don't go for Rittenhouses or anything like that. But again, like I'll sit I'm okay with a PBR and a shot of Old Grandad. I mean, I'm totally fine with that. And I mean, I've had whiskey from, very, very low end all the way to very high end. It's just find what you like, I think, is the big thing that, I'm trying to look at my bar and see if there's anything up here that I'm like,
yes, exactly.
I'm very, it's kind of like my wine situation. It just depends on the day. But big Woodford fan, big Old Forester fan. I think those brands have done a really good job being true to what they do. Woodford actually is the only other brand I've found that does a straight rye, straight bourbon, straight wheat, and straight malt that you can find on a shelf any given day. One of my good friends was the state ambassador for Woodford, so we had some fun doing some side-by-sides with that.
Absolutely, I bet.
But yeah, I got really big into 1792 during COVID. I had entirely too many bottles of single barrels and bottled in bonds, and now I'm looking at a sweet wheat. I have a 12-year. I got as many as I could. I think I weirdly had 20 or 30 of them. But my favorite whiskey that we make, that I drink if I have it at the bar, is going to be our malt. I was going to whatever my highest proof one was, which is this one. Yeah. So these are all hand fills. So we do have what we call a straight from the barrel experience at the distillery.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. Yes, and so this one. This goes back. This one's 420 distilled date, 4/20/2017. So kind of fun. Barrel 971, but I have it anywhere from 134 up to 144 proof. So that is the barrel that is my favorite out of the distillery. But we do have this experience at the distillery. It's on our website. We post a lot on social media.
Right.
It's going to become a big focus of mine moving forward, that we have all 4 of the unbents. All 4 have gravity flows on them. You go in, you pick your bottle, you put it up underneath the feeder, you turn the handle, just like you would at Angel's Envy or Michter's.
Right.
It's not a $50,000 Vendome system.
Right, but
we can't afford that. But we had our bottling manufacturer figure out how to make us these. So we have those. It's a really cool experience. You can come in, you write on your label, you go in, you fill it yourself. It's one of those really cool experiences that Andalusia started to do one. They have a system that we had previous that it's kind of a Jimmy Rig system, but if it works, it works. I know that somebody else is doing, I couldn't remember the other one, but somebody else is doing one also. Maybe Samuel Maverick. Really,
I haven't been there yet.
Really cool. When you come up, we'll fill you a bottle.
I appreciate that.
We've now had, I pull samples of them all, whatever's active right now. And the wheat's the lowest proof at 127, all the way up to the malt barrel. We just changed that one, just ran it out, which is a sad day to see that barrel go. But the new one's 134 proof, and it sings just as well as the last barrel did. So
right. Absolutely.
So kind of 2 polar opposites, Woodford, and then a straight malt from a Texas distillery. There we go. But if I'm at a bar and they don't have my whiskey, I almost exclusively will order Still Austin, musician, whatever it may be. I think they're doing really good things. They have a very, what I call mainstream flavor profile like we do, and it doesn't polarize itself to a Texas funk. That's generally what I try to go for. And again, I'm really big fans of what they do and just their whole team down there. Their team's great. Very humble people that just make cool whiskey and can line 200 to 300 people up outside the doors on a Friday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And before this episode comes out, they will actually be on the podcast as well. So look forward to that, guys. Yeah.
Who'd you have on?
Oh, Lord. Yeah, I knew you were going to put me on the spot.
Sales guy or distilling guy?
A distilling guy and a sales guy. What is his name? Jason?
Jason, yeah. Jason's great.
Jason
is going to be on the Texas Whiskey Association events committee with me.
Yes.
Soon to be announced. He's good people.
Yes. I'm trying to think of the other guy's name.
John, clean cut guy?
Yes, John.
Yeah, John.
Right.
Yeah, he's their he's their head distiller. Yeah, he's the cool guy. He doesn't look like he makes whiskey, but he makes really good whiskey.
Absolutely.
He loves our rye whiskey. He absolutely loves our rye whiskey.
I'm going to have to dip into that. I'm going to have to dip into that rye whiskey. And for those of you at home, I just wanted to say BENDT Distilling went above and beyond. They did not have to send me what they did. And so I'll do this after we get off, but I want to give some samples out to people. So I think everybody needs to try this whiskey. Doesn't matter which one you want. You need to try something. I went back to the wheat whiskey, and it is blowing up right now. Like I don't know what it is, but I'm really jiving with it. It's getting super chocolatey, which I love. It's just amazing to be around cool people doing cool things, and it just happens to be around a whiskey. So, that really means a lot to me, and I can't thank you enough, Riley, for coming on here and hanging out with me. I understand we're running late into the night for me. Maybe not for you, but for me. If you want to tell everybody socials for the business or your personal, however you want to do it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, first of all, thanks for having me, and I appreciate you being a craft lover, a Texas lover.
Absolutely.
Our social at BENDT Distilling Co., Facebook, Instagram, soon to be TikTok. I'm not a TikToker, but My sales girl is a Gen Zer, so we have put her in charge of a TikTok. So my Instagram is hashtag ROLI_Hughes01, nickname from grade school. So, and then website BENDT Distilling Company, BENDTDistillingCo.com. You can find all of our bottles on there on our shop. Again, I'm going to share the code with you. That way you guys have it. We have some free shipping codes that are helpful to get people to kind of pull the trigger on some stuff. But yeah, we're a lot more active on social media than we were, 3-4 years ago. You can find almost anything that we're doing on there. We're really good about. We actually do have a marketing agency that works with us and helps us with our social. So we're trying to grow that, trying to grow just kind of awareness, and give us a follow, come out and visit us. Feel free to share my information as well. I mean, sales at BENDT Distilling Company, BENDT Distilling Co. is what goes to me, or Raleigh at BENTDistillingCo.com goes to me as well. Hit me up. I'm always at the distillery. I like to show people around. 1 person, 3 people, 10 people, 20 people. It's just fun for us to be able to go out and just have people enjoy what they're seeing. I had a guy, last story, I promise. Had a guy Saturday, and he goes by, God, what was his name? His name is Pierre, lives up in Denton. He's a whiskey guy. And I reached out to him. He was on with the Only Bourbon Fans.
Okay. Yeah.
I reached out to him, came out on Saturday. It was the first distillery he's ever been to. He filled his own bottle. And he's like, dude, I kind of like me. I go back to the Old Forester. I'm never going to forget Old Forester. It's your first distillery experience. And now he has a bottle to take home with him. So it's really fun for me to show people. It's not just me showboating. It's giving people the experience. That's what it's about. It's a true hands-on experience to go around and see it, taste it, and just enjoy it. So really cool that we have this bourbon community that just kind of bands around each other.
Absolutely.
Around corn and water and yeast.
Exactly. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, we're all just like, okay, so we're all drinking the same. Cool. Yeah, no, let's go. Let's talk about our day. That's fine.
All kinds of different. I've had more different conversations, and I need to get you. I think you and Emiliano would have a good time. He's the ATX Whiskey Society guys on Instagram. Yes. Good. Him and Brandon, good dudes.
Yeah.
But I think I just hopped on last Tuesday because Brandon was out of town, and I just sat and talked with Emiliano for an hour on Instagram Live. Like that's
funny.
So we can have a good time. I'm glad we can all have a good time with it.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. It's all about having a good time, sharing a dram, and hopefully the dram's halfway decent. And I can tell you with this, it's more than halfway decent. So I really appreciate you again for coming on here. Obviously, stick around. I want to talk to you for a second. But
for sure.
Y'all be good. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and everything we're doing over here. If you need to get a hold of me, whiskeyshamanpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, keep your spirits up. Peace.
Cheers.